what I was wondering is, what kind of to kind of help to supplement the sessions and all this, what kind of like homework or things would you give a system, things, you know, to or what sort of things do you do to support them? And
well, okay, I suppose I try to talk about the closest equivalent to what they're dealing with, if I'm talking to the AMP with others listening, is if you're, and I've said this before, if you're a single parent and you're having to go to work and you've got a life as an adult, not only for work, but you also want to have a life with your friends, and yet you've got 2 young children, if we're thinking just in a simple way, and you've got to work, you've got to have, for your own sanity, you've got to have a life of your own, but you also have the responsibility of making sure that your children are cared for, not just dumped with a childminder, but also cared for. And so very often it's not unusual, generally, for someone who's a single parent and is in a lot of pressure and having to work, when they come back, their mind's all the time on the work and having to think of the next thing or preparing for the next day. And at the end, there are issues sometimes where the kids start acting up because they're not being given enough attention. And so if they're going to respect the fact that their parent, if I'm using that analogy, has to go to work and has a right to their own life, they've also got to feel that it's fair that when their parent is back home, that they're given quality time to play, to do the things that they want to do, and feel that the parent is engaged with helping them. So it's the same thing, is that there needs to be a fair dues. You often say that in families, you know, so that in order to make sure you're not interrupted at work, that'll only work if those parts inside of you feel that they're given time and space when you're at home. Because often what starts going wrong is that, you know, the person who's not been aware of it fully and things change and it starts leaking through, they find that their work is affected, okay, or parts come out. And so they keep pushing them back. And it doesn't work because parts, once they realize that they're around and that they have a right to be, start making life horrible for whichever AMP is trying to maintain the status quo. So it's a fair exchange, but that's easy to say, but it's quite hard to do. But that's what I would say, so that when you're at home, when you're not, you know, the homework is not that you read up about it. The homework is that you start getting to know and understand what some of the parts might want, and give them help, give them you know, drawing materials if that's whatever it is. Sit down, and even if you don't feel connected, still play with them. I know it's inside, but actually, you know, with someone with that system, they can visualize that, and it's as though they're literally playing, sitting down next to another part. That's what helps. That would be the main thing. Sometimes, if someone is well established in therapy, one of the things I used to do was to, with permission and careful managing, is to video record a session and suggest that at home they sit down, or in therapy if they needed a bit of help. At home they sit down and they watch it, and so they can see other parts that may have appeared in the session, because part of it is a brain gym to start recognizing that who you see there is you, even though doesn't sound like you, and it's a much younger part. Those actually make a difference. If they've got a partner, it helps in terms of, often the partner may already know a lot about it. They may have different relationships with different parts, but also to make sure if they've got a partner as well, that there are times where they are there as a couple doing things what adults do, whatever it is, going out, and that needs understanding by the younger ones as well. The more there is that balance, which was never there as a child, the more it'll calm down into a status, a sort of way of living that's not going to be disrupted all the time. But that takes a lot, because there is often an AMP, someone will understand intellectually, but not really want to do it.
Yeah.
And you know, you can understand, because often someone with that background will have had to deal with parents or adults that needed their care. So here you are having to yet again start doing that to yourself. But that's the only way that changes. We can't do that as therapists. No one else can. Ultimately, we can be alongside it, but it's the person themselves who has to be able to care for what's going on with some help.
Yeah. And I mean, there are many, I think that's something that most people deal with, getting an assignment that they don't really want to do. And
Yes, that's right. Put it off till the last moment. Or what's a classic is someone is busy at night doing something very adult, or watching an adult movie or something, and then wonder when they go to bed why they're nightmares, and they can't, well, they feel as though they haven't slept at all, because at night they've got less control of what's going on, and so some parts come out, or they may be in distress, or they may even wander off. And what's got to learn is to make sure that you do what you would do with a young child, is you make sure that child at the end of the day has calm things around in preparation to go to bed, and is surrounded by teddies or whatever. And so you get some people on the adults who think this is a crazy idea. I must be nuts. But that the idea of having teddy or whatever toys and teddies around them, that's pathetic. And yet they realize that if they do it, it works.
Yeah.
It actually calms things down.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah. I guess it is like, you know, learning that you have a family, or that you have kids that you need to take care of, and
it's very
difficult.
It's difficult because your life has been busy, as you didn't realize what's going on, in order, whether you're conscious or not, to stop being reminded of your past, partly, and in those situations. So to suddenly find that you've got a family there, you know, it's understandably hard. And
to take care of them, to anticipate what they will need, and
that's right.
So
you're having to make up for what you didn't get yourself. I mean, you can get help from inside, you can get others, depending how its system works. You may get other older ones, but you've actually got to make up for what you didn't get at the past, right? Which is what, as therapists, we try to do in a therapeutic way. We try to show the care and the concern, and listen carefully to, and accept what you're hearing. But ultimately, it's the person who has to find a way of parenting that.
Because this has just kind of made a connection to me of something that we're all sort of told, you know, that we have an inner child and we need to take care of that inner child.
Yes.
Yes,
there are parallels, isn't it? And you know, sometimes we can ignore that, and sometimes we need to. But actually, the difference is we have a bit more choice. We can put it off. But at times there is a knowing. You know, most of us will know that at times we have to step back and not engage fully in the world, and be able to care for what that inner child, or what is still there. I can recognize old traits that have been there from early on that repeat themselves from time to time. And what it's not about solving it, is about being mindful of it and caring about it and being compassionate. And that probably is, makes a huge difference. Because sometimes I've had someone come in who has had a doll since she was very young, that she sort of carries by her hair. She's got no sense of caring for it. So she comes in, she said, I told you I had a doll, here it is. So I said, oh, you can't treat a doll like that. Oh, let me hold it for you. So I have to hold the doll and say, this is what she needs. And then I hand it back to her, and then she starts doing it. And then she's embarrassed, but then suddenly something clicked. I mean, it's the ability, we have an enormous ability to mend. I mean, that's what's impressive, that, despite some of the horrific things that people with DID have gone through, the ability to shift something is quite enormous. The ability for brains to rejiggle, to be able to find ways of overcoming that are very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Just I guess more of a logistical sort of thing. With that case, with having the ANP put the teddy bears out for the night, is it that they themselves would experience, they would be tired the following morning if the littles had been active or whatever it is, and that says they would experience fatigue the next day because the body hadn't got a proper sleep?
Usually they feel something's wrong with the body. I mean, some will just, there's a mixture. Sometimes nothing is felt about the body being completely exhausted. There's an ability to run on an empty battery in that sense. But normally, especially at night, there's a feeling that they're not aware of what's gone on at night. So as far as they're concerned, they've been asleep, but they feel exhausted. And of course, there's been activity going on, and they don't feel refreshed at all. They just often never sleep well. And then try and take more and more, sleep tablets and things, which isn't the answer. It's about being able to resolve that in the ways that I talked to you about.
That's interesting to know.
I mean, the power of being able to use these symbolic, concrete and symbolic things like a doll, and to be able to hold it, is that not only is the person feeling it, but parts inside begin to feel held by that experience. So part of it is that it's not a question of therapy, in my mind, of having to be able to resolve every part's trauma. It's when you start having a system in place with dealing with that, with one example, it sort of ricochets and it gets picked up. So you don't have to deal with everything. Otherwise, if some people have lots of parts, it'd be never ending. But it's changing the direction, which then seems to make a difference.
Yeah.